Welcome to the Cabin Culture Podcast, where we spend a little more time diving deeper into all the fun parts of cabin culture. I like to think of this as both the material and imagined expressions of how cabin lovers, dwellers, builders, and designers wish to live a more simple and authentic life. On today's episode, we're thrilled to have Lindsey from Cabin Love, a beloved and influential Instagram account that has been a source of inspiration for cabin enthusiasts for years. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you've heard of this account and very likely follow it. Today, we're diving into a rich discussion about cabin culture, storytelling, and the magic behind creating spaces that feel like more than just real estate. Lindsey shares with us her journey, insights into how to create a cabin experience that resonates deeply with people, and how she balances staying true to herself while building such a well-loved community around cabins. This conversation is packed with inspiration for anyone who is thinking about building or dreaming of their own cabin. And her passion for cabins goes beyond aesthetics. It's about creating emotional connections and sharing the magic of small spaces that provide a retreat from the world. As always, thanks for joining us. Let's do it. Can you start by telling me, where are you? Where is your place in the world?
Oh, so I live in Southern California. I'm smack between LA and San Diego. So just this kind of sleepy little surf town.
Which is also not what I would ever associate with cabin culture. Is that true or am I wrong?
I mean, I guess it depends on kind of your definition of it, right? I think in a North American sense, a lot of people think of cabin culture as Pacific Northwest, right?
Yeah.
Or no, I was going to say, the East Coast, but these small little wooden structures nestled into the woods.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, something I love so much is kind of opening up the aperture on the concept of what a cabin is. And so it's a small space far away, right? It's a little shack. It could be a tree house. It could be a little cottage. It can be anything to it. It's more the idea of a cabin versus a house, I suppose. And in that, maybe the idea is that, a cabin is somewhere that you go to, you retreat to, you take respite in versus, and for a lot of people, it could be your day-to-day, but it's set aside maybe.
Yeah.
So I do think that, there's lots of little bungalow beach shacks here.
Yes, that's true. I can picture that. I struggle with this escape part of it because it feels so inherent in cabin culture. And our cabin is 13 hours away. So every time we go, it really is an escape. But for our next project, I'm really looking at land that's so close because I want to be hands-on with the hosting. I really want to now that doesn't mean that guests won't travel, but it might be a escape that's within reach. But then I keep grappling with, does that change that? Can it be a cabin if it's within reach? How much of an escape does it need to be?
I mean, I think that that's almost better, right? I think that for me, again, the concept or idea of a cabin, what makes it something that we dream about is that it's an extremely achievable goal. Whether it's if I start setting aside money today, I could probably within some number of years be able to buy one. It's usually a smaller financial burden than a house.
Yeah.
So it's possible to probably buy one. If you can't buy one, it's probably affordable to be able to go and visit one.
Yeah.
And whether that's for a big vacation, a small vacation, a little weekend away. And so I think that, of course, if it's a couple of hours away, it can still be a big escape. And that the fact that it's that much closer, there's something about maybe something that's a 2-hour drive that makes it feel like you're on an adventure.
Yeah.
Right.
That's far enough.
It's a step outside of the normal life to it.
Yeah.
And so maybe if it were 15 minutes away, it wouldn't feel as much of a, actually I call it a geographic cure, actually moving yourself to somewhere else. It can be a cure for the day-to-day. And that there's a little portal almost that you go through a 2-hour road trip.
Yeah.
Or a 2-hour flight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just enough.
Yeah. Where are you guys at? You're in New England?
No, so we live in North Carolina.
North Carolina, but you have a place in New England.
Yeah. We have one cabin in the mountains of North Carolina and then 2 up in Maine, which is where most of my family is. So I grew up spending my summers in Maine, and that was kind of my introduction to this
I have
world.
been constantly for years now just going along all of the little coastal islands of Maine, being like, maybe
Yeah.
that's where I could buy a little spot. Maybe there,
Yeah.
maybe there. But what part of North Carolina?
We're in Durham, Hillsborough, right
Oh,
outside
yeah.
Durham. Yeah.
Yeah, my aunt's in that area. And then one of my dearest friends is in, oh gosh, I always get it confused with Oregon.
Asheville.
Asheville, and then Ashland is in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Asheville.
Asheville's amazing. It's in the mountains of North Carolina. Our
Oh my
cabin
God.
is like an hour from Asheville. It's in Boone, a smaller.
Oh yeah. Isn't that like where the term boonies comes from?
That's a really good question. It's weird that I wouldn't know that, but probably because it's named after Daniel Boone, which
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
in the boonies. Yeah.
out in the boonies. Yeah. I love Boone. It's like a smaller version of Asheville. It's also
Yeah.
like very hippie, but a little bit more like outdoorsy hippie, whereas Asheville's like hippie.
You know,
And bigger.
respect to them all. I like it
I
all.
know. I know. They're all great. I have no complaints. We travel to Asheville too. But okay, one thing that you just said that's really interesting to me though is you said a cabin feels accessible. I don't know that anyone's described it that way before, but I think you're totally right. This dream of like maybe it's one room, maybe where it's like I posted something recently and everyone's getting on me about the closet, that there aren't enough closets. And I keep feeling this bristle about it. And I don't know if it's just because they're calling out our cabin, but I think it's because I'm like, guys, this is a cabin. Like, who expects a walk-in closet in a cabin?
I mean, to be frank in it, like, who wants that? When you sure, if you're planning on living in it, when you're living there, it needs to have different things than a cabin would have. If you're at a cabin, like, for lack of a better term, like, you kind of want to be living that idea of a Pinterest life, 2 bowls, 2 spoons, 2 forks, just enough room in the closet where it's like, the idea of a cabin, like, it distills it down. It distills you down to what's necessary in it. So if you're bringing enough for a walk-in closet for 4 days or a week away, no judgment, but just maybe is that what you're coming there for? Like,
this is the right place for you. Just enough. That feels like the right words for it. It's just enough.
It's just enough. And I think that is one of the most like beautiful lessons that you can get in a lot of ways from it, where it's like, look, it's possible. Again, like if you wanted to build a cabin, it's possible. Probably figure out how to build it. If you want to build a little one room kind of thing, if you want to go and it's like your first time taking, maybe not quite going camping, but going out to the outdoors, it is a very safe way to do that, right? Yeah. Obviously, it can cause a lot of havoc and potential harm, but you probably are going to be able to have a really nice stepping stone in it. And I think that is just such a lovely thing. And I think, people are always going to get on you about something, right? And at the end of the day, it's like, man, you guys probably didn't build your cabin for them. You built it for what you want. And it's kind of like, if I were to have one, I probably wouldn't have a TV in it, right? Because I don't want I don't want a TV where I go to. And if I know someone who they built this really beautiful little shack right on the edge of a bay, and they just have a bathtub, no shower, and like people get mad all the time, and she's like, I don't like showers. I like bathtubs with the handheld.
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
So, like I'm inviting you into this world that I created. And if you want to step into it and live in the world that I created, this is your invitation. But, I'm not creating something that's necessary. I hope you like it and I hope you enjoy it, but, kind of surrender to the possibility of what this is and what my world is.
Which is the tension I think that Airbnb has created, because the beauty of it is that we each get to create something that's part of, I think, like you said, like your own world. I've created the world that I want to live in, and now I'm willing to share it with you. So people can experience something that is deeply personal and also different from what they've created. On the flip side, it has also become a business for a lot of people, which is fine. But any business has to think about its customers and like what makes customers happy, which then creates that tension of like, well, I created my world and I'm welcoming you into it, but I'm actually not welcoming your feedback. That's not true. I want guest feedback, but like your feedback on the world that this is.
Yeah. And I mean, I hear what you're saying in that. I personally would want to like step it, like at least look at it from a slightly different angle, which is when you build something that's for other people to like it, it's not going to have that magic, right? But when you build what it is that you want it to have and what feels right to you and hits the notes of what you want, it will have that magic that is magnetic. But if you're always trying to please other people, same in your life, right? If you're always trying to please other people, you are always going to be not enough, grasping, not having enough closets, whatever it might be. And so instead, you have to step back and say, well, what do I want? And then make that. And if it hits for people, it hits. And if it doesn't, thank you so much. Peace be with you. I'm so happy that you hopefully got something from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I need to like clip that and just save it on my phone for when I'm having a bad day. Cause it
Just call me
truly,
and I'll send you the little hype voice message as needed.
because it's so hard, especially, I mean, the combination of Airbnb and then Instagram, and you put those two together and it just welcomes all kinds of outside feedback on your world that you've created. And we did start so innocently with Cozy Rock that it was 100% for us. And we were like, we just need Airbnb to help us pay the expenses so that we can build it, right? And then it turned into something bigger that's beautiful, and I love sharing it. But the feedback piece of it, it's for me personally hard to let go of that. Like, oh, how do I let this be my world? And just, it's okay if you don't want to be a part of it. That piece can be so hard. So I think what you said is really important. A daily reminder is needed there.
I mean, I think that for me, when you think about those places that you remember, right? They weren't just stays. And especially when you mentioned Airbnb in this, or whatever platform you happen to like put your rental on and things like that, there's that saying, be the signal, not the noise, right? And so if you can be kind of that little beacon of what you're wanting to see or experience, or that little bit of beauty in the world that you're desperately aching to experience more of, that's wonderful. That's doing good work, right? And so I think when you think of the ones as in the cabins or the stays or the places or whatever it is that are air quote successful, it's probably the ones that feel like a story or feel like a poem, or they feel like something that is essentially selling you emotion, not real estate, right? Like, I am selling you the idea of, the dream of, the beauty of this place far away, and this little weekend of what it might be, or this time by a fire, not again closets. And those are the stays that I think are kind of like worth it.
Yeah.
And like, for again, lack of a better way to put it, like, the world doesn't need a lot more of a lot of things, right? We don't need a lot more of a really generic, soulless kind of stay. Like, we want places that have like a little bit of soul in the sauce, that have a little bit of funk, a little bit of something different, and that's what's memorable, that's what's special, and that is really cool. And so I think when you can invite someone into, again, this idea of somewhere completely different and set aside, I was scrolling on Instagram the other day, and there was this little reel that came up where they're like, look, nobody asked for Jimi Hendrix. Like, nobody wanted Jimi Hendrix, but they got Jimi Hendrix and he changed the world. Yeah. Nobody asked for Sgt. Pepper's, but they got Sgt. Pepper's and it changed the world. And like, nobody needs another soulless stay. Yeah. But I think that we maybe need some more of these places that can help change the perspective on what you realize is important in life, and that can be a little bit different. If you're always just like trying to be the one that was already successful, you're already 10 steps behind, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so true. And this, I think, Lindsey, is what's so special about what you've created, because this whole like cabin porn movement that started like around when you created Cabin Love was never, and this is what I loved about it and what sucked me in, it was never about real estate. It was always about emotions. And the cabins that you share, some of them are very cool, but some of them are very simple, but you can just feel being there. And I think for me, just seeing that amidst a feed of a whole bunch of other stuff would calm me down, right? It's kind of like those YouTube videos of a cabin that you can like watch in the background. It's like that feeling.
I mean, that makes me so happy you said that. I started Cabin Love in like 2013 or something like that, when I, in kind of like a different era of my life, was finishing up student teaching. And I was like, it ended up not being for me to be a teacher, but I was doing it and I was like, man, I don't feel this kind of like spark or energy or thing. And I was like, there was something I was aching for. And I realized like, well, I'm not finding it wherever I want it. So I'm going to create what it is that I don't see that I need, and kind of post these images that at the beginning a lot were mine just from like previous old travels. And then I'm going to post these things that I need to see and I want to see. And I'm going to write captions essentially to myself that are what I want to read and I want to see.
Yeah.
And it ended up taking off really quickly because immediately people would send it to like their significant other, their person they dreamed about things with, whatever it might have been. And it'd be like, us, one day, this, that. It's the idea of something. And it was, my thought was always kind of the Charles Schulz principle of Peanuts, which he was like, I want you to come in, read my comic for 7 or 10 seconds, leave, and your day's better for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want you to be able to come to Cabin Love, and like, here's this moment where it's the idea of, it's the hope of, it's the dream of, it's a little moment of, the tag used to be cabin candy for somewhere far, far away. And it was just like, here's this little moment. It's going to make you feel better. And maybe it'll help you get through your day, your week, your month, or be like, yeah, one day I'm going to build that cabin. And hopefully one day comes, but also like one day doesn't ever have to come, right? Because those dreams and those ideas change, and the things that we're longing for change, which is really beautiful.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what it was. And it's also why, like, I mean, I do very, very few collaborations or things with brands or anybody else, because it's like, I don't need to. Like, I actively choose for it to not be my job, but for it to be something really fun that I have on the side that, like, I love and I adore, and I get to like make so many friends out of it, and I can help like uplift people, hopefully people like you who, have it and make a business out of it. And like, for sure, would I love to one day have my own little like rental? Great. When it falls into my hands and it's everything's correct and all of those things to it. But, otherwise, how can what I do make what you do better? Or how can, because I have this platform of a lot of people who are probably interested, how can I just like help and benefit? And I think that's really wonderful. Of course, sometimes like those little collaborations help to make it possible to do other things in it.
Right.
But, and there's always the practicality and always the reality. But like, there was this era really early on where, I don't know if you remember, like everybody was posting about their like wooden watches.
No.
Oh my gosh. It's like you would suddenly see all of these people who had like slightly bigger followings, or followings that were growing, because, again, mine grew like fairly quickly just because people like wanted to like dream about it with each other.
Yes.
You'd see all of these people that suddenly got some followers, and they were also were like, oh my God, I love my new wooden watch. If you want a discount, here's my code. And it's like, that just was never something for me. And I think that kind of like trust that I ended up getting to build with the people who wanted to follow along in it and wanted to be inspired by all of that, they stuck around from it. Because very quickly, like what I was coming up with was absolutely nothing new. Like you mentioned, cabin porn, I have a stack of cabin books in my in my closet. Like it's been something that people dream about for a very long time. And it was nothing new that I came up with.
But you gave us a daily place to see it. Because I remember when I started dreaming, I was in my first year of teaching.
Yeah.
And then it's my second and third year. I remember feeling, I was doing Teach for America, and I was placed at a very amazing school, but very demanding school. And so I was working, literally I was sleeping like 4 hours a night. And in my like non-existent free time, I would start pinning cabins, and I had a log cabin savings account with like $100 in it. I was making $29,000 a year. But to your point, it felt doable. But then when Instagram became more popular, it was like, I didn't have to go to Pinterest. It was just like part of this daily feed. And what it did for me at that time is like, I felt like I was always Ms. Smith and never Janice. And I just lost this, like, who am I as a person, instead of just who am I serving these families and kids, which I loved. And cabins was a place where I could dream about what I would do as just Janice. What would Janice do if she didn't have to answer to anyone else? And I feel like Cabin Love and like just other people sharing this stuff made that possible. And then one day those dreams turned into my own cabin, but it all started with just that escape. And that was enough at that time. That
Oh
was
my
enough
gosh.
for me.
Absolutely, right? Because you do just, it fills you up enough, and it could be just like, yeah, just dream about it, and you're like, damn, that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
and also the fact that you probably saw, for me, the exciting part is there's no rules, in my opinion, about a cabin, where it's like, it can look like a, a witch's shoe, and that can be a cabin. It can look like, a classic Adirondacks cabin. Like, it could look like anything, and it's possible. And so I think you probably getting to see all of these different navies gives you this permission to be like, okay, like, what's mine then? Like you said, what is it as Janice? Like, what is it that makes, again, my heart sing within that?
Yeah.
And I think that, that's why I've done it for so long. I like kind of step back a little bit, because in a lot of ways, like, there are so many cabin accounts, or there are so many people kind of posting the same thing or sharing the same thing. And to me, there's very little interest in, like, when there's kind of this big moment of a lot of people looking to the outdoors, looking to cabins, looking for these places, which is in a lot of ways was a reflection of the economy and different, like, burdens that we're having and all of that. And so you kind of see this rise within culture of, like, of a hipster movement, of a certain aesthetic, of the hashtag live authentic movements, like all of that kind of stuff. And for me, it just gets very uninteresting when I see a lot of people doing it, and I'm, there's not much, sure, do what's happening, but add to the conversation, like, add your part to it. And so I think that, one of the beautiful things of Instagram is you get to see all of this amazing work from photographers, from videographers, from just general content creators, from all of these different people. And you get to see all of these different ways of living in all of these different places, just all of it. But as what happens is people are maybe often chasing kind of things that are difficult. And so you start to see the images start to look edited the same. The angles are the same. Like, there's not a lot of individual perspective in it. And that is, to say it again, like, a lot less interesting. And so, sure, I could probably post, like, these banger photos that are going to get a lot, but, like, who needs it, right? Go to one of the many other accounts for that, please. So for me, that's why I, like, started doing cabin building courses, or I started, like, I took it a lot from dreaming to doing was a really big thing for me, where it's like, hell yeah, dream about these cabins, dream about a weekend away, dream about having something. But now let's also take it to doing. So can you go and actually, again, geographic here, take yourself to somewhere, go and do it, do the thing, go and build the cabin. Here's a workshop to, like, help teach you how to do that, which I did with my friends we did 4 of them, I think, 3 or 4 of them, where we taught you, like, how to do a Japanese timber framing of a cabin. And we did it up in Joseph, Oregon with my buddies at the Jennings Hotel. And it was called Prairie Mountain Folk School. And we had, like, 15 or 20 people per session.
In person?
In person, yeah. And made it, like, very cheap. Like, it just covered cost, right? Because this isn't, for me, sure, there's so much, and, like, paying the people who teach it and all of that a lot, all of the different things. But, like, the burden of entry, or the barrier of entry, should be accessible. It should be possible, right? And so, again, dreaming to doing, like, let me tell you where these places are, as long as it's responsible to the environment and the place and all of those things. Let me tell you where they are. Let me tell you how to go and, like, support Janice. Let me tell you about, like, where these, where whatever it might be is. And so that's, I think, also why I ended up being like, cool, a lot of people have kind of this handled around cabins. And I ended up being like, all right, well, because I a lot of times in my day-to-day life, I do a lot of ghostwriting, and a lot of that is for, like, cookbooks and things like that. So I wrote this, or I co-wrote a cookbook for Pendleton Field Guide. Or Pendleton, like, the blankets. Yeah. They did this field guide series, and it was like, here's like campfire talks or campfire stories like a camping one, and then one that was like camp cooking. And so ended up like exploring kind of like what is interesting. Let's explore the stuff that's outside of just cabins. So we'll do like a cookbook on campfire cooking, and then ended up expanding to writing books about like saunas and hot springs and different places, like different small structures that have that same idea of little places far away, which is really, really cool, right? And how can you get somewhere further from it? And then you start to see, not because of my book or anything like this, but you start to see cabins adding on, like, how do we start to make my stay different? We see cabins adding on saunas. You see cabins adding on plunges. Like, you see cabins adding on these things that I think open up what the experience is of a cabin and what a stay is, because it's now familiar. I think people are like familiar with the idea of going to a little place. So how do you make it a little bit more immersive? Total tangent. Sorry.
No, I love that though, but it makes me think, like, how do you marry that with this idea of your world, right? Because I feel like the saunas are really big right now, and we've thought about putting one in at our cabin, right? Because it feels like, oh, everybody wants one. But I actually don't like saunas. I personally like, right. And so how do we get people to think outside of, because I feel like Instagram has grown so much since you first started your account, to your point of what you were saying earlier, where it's just oversaturated and it's hard to find your voice. I think the same is true in the world of hosting at cabins and creating unique experiences of, like, I'm not just replicating. And the more that people sell plans, the easier it becomes to just see the same thing pop up over and over again. And I think that makes it accessible, but like, how do we get people to truly dive into something that is them without worrying about, but how will this affect my price point or my occupancy, or like how many doors I have? I don't even know if I use that term right. But like,
whatever it is, right? And I think that, there's nothing new in the world in a lot of ways, right? And so you can say, okay, the idea of a cabin here is like the blueprint to it. Or, even if you're looking at, like, if you're doing many things, there's like probably an outline or a structure or something that is constant throughout everything. If you're writing a song, there's probably a structure that you follow within it, but you add your own shape to it. If you are like, creating a garment, there's certain things that you need and then you add to it. There's this is a very bastardized version of translation of this, but there's this French philosopher and basically had the idea of, when you're doing something, you want to first make it function and make it work, make it fit the needs of what you're building it for. And then you make it beautiful because you can. And so for these cabins, it's like, I think that a lot of people see it as like, I can plug and play and in a way like objectify this cabin. I can like make it just be something that does something for me, rather than seeing it as like, if we're going to get a little bit out there, like, make it an art project, make it a love letter, make it a story, make it a world that you step into, make it something different. And it's scary to do something different than what other people have done, and they've already paved the road for you. And you can see, if I do this, that, the other, I'll get to there probably. But I think that that's capped, right? Because you are doing what's been done. So you're going to get what's been done.
Yeah.
And if you want to break out or grow or whatever it might be, you have to be willing to tread in uncharted territory a little bit. You have to be a little bit brave. And in being a little bit brave, you are hopefully being more true. And in that, you ideally will get rewarded on the other side of what that might be, because you are something different that people haven't seen before. And more importantly, you're authentic and you're true. And that shines like a beacon so much more than something else, because people are tired of the same. They're tired of the same. And not to say that we are seeking this, always something new. It's that I'm tired of seeing things, to go back to the beginning, like without soul. I want to go to places that have a heart and have a story. That doesn't mean that you can't have cabinets that you bought from IKEA and put in, right? Like you 1,000% can. But just have it be something that feels true to you. You don't like a sauna? Don't put a sauna in. But like, what is the thing to you that, piques your curiosity? Is it that you're like, ooh, I wonder, because for me, I follow this idea where I'll hear myself saying, ooh, I wonder, and I'm like, keep going down that road. That's the right road. So maybe you're like, oh, I wonder what it's like to be up in that tree, like, and you end up building a platform up in the tree. It's probably an insurance nightmare, but you just start doing like, what are the things that please you in that, rather than just, again, people, you can tell that there's a difference when you like walk into a place and you're like, somebody put the things in because they thought this was right, versus this place became what it is.
Yeah.
And they could have such similar things, but there's a different heart to one of them. And, it is that, like, not to say what's next, but there isn't necessarily something like what's next in the world of cabins. It's like, well, what's next at Cozy Rock, right?
Yeah,
like,
what do you want?
What do you want? Like, what is it that you're like, oh my gosh, like, I think I had messaged you about this. I'm like, I am deeply into bonsai trees right now and like learning what that means, right?
Yeah.
And like, that's probably what I'm going to start sharing stuff about.
Yeah. Yeah, because it makes you come alive. And when you come alive, that's what the world needs more of.
Yes.
How have you handled that with your account? Because you've been around, if you started in 2013, it's been 11 years. And I can only speak for myself, but after 4 years of being on Instagram, there is a lot of struggle with it, a lot of joy, a lot of community, a lot of benefit, and also a lot of challenge of like, how am I not just another voice in this space that maybe doesn't need another voice, right? Like what am I serving that needs served rather than myself, right? Sometimes it can feel self-indulgent. So how have you navigated that?
I mean, one, I think that like you're fine if it is like a little bit self-indulgent, but conscious maybe of it. I don't know. But I've navigated it in, I hold it really lightly, right? Like, it's not my identity. It's part of something I enjoy and I love, and is a really, really genuine big source of joy in my life. Like you mentioned, a lot because of the community, a lot because I am so deeply grateful that people invite me into places that they treasure and show me around places that are meaningful to them. And I've had the chance to see so many places in this world that I wouldn't have gotten to see if I hadn't started Cabin Love. Right. And I have some of my dearest friends because of this wonderful account, and in that, I think that is the greatest gift. But I think that, and that's probably one of the reasons why, you'll get messages all the time, and I'm sure you get it for yours. Do you want to sell your account? And you're like, no, I don't want to sell this. And I never will want to sell it, because it is such a joy to be able to meet people, to connect with people, to like have you message me and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I would love to talk about anything with you. Let's go. Or like our mutual friend, Ethan, or, wherever it might be, or it opens up the possibility when you're on a trip somewhere else that you have a like-minded person who is probably going to, right? It's kind of like the wine bottle theory. You're like, I don't know if this wine's good, but if you wanted to make a label that looks like this, we probably would get along, which means we probably like the same wine, right?
Yeah.
So like we probably would like the same places to stay.
Yeah.
And the world has what feels like endless places to adventure and explore and go and see new spots. And so I think the possibility of that is something that just always keeps my curiosity very alive. And, I very, very, very much so ebb and flow from it. And I have barely been posting for a little while because I'm in a stage of, what do I even want to post? What am I wanting to have a conversation on in it? And, what is it that how do I want to step into it as, because in a lot of ways, it's its own entity. And me as Lindsey, I'm very little a part of it. I'm rarely you rarely see my face, rarely see who I am or anything, which was fun early on when people would find out it's a woman behind Cabin Love. No one assumed it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
I wonder what my first assumption was. I don't know. That's interesting. Why wouldn't it be a woman behind a cabin account?
Why not? And I love that. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah. How
And
many people
so,
in your real life do you meet who like have no idea about this account?
um,
And is that a weird thing? Like, how do you even explain it to people?
well, it's so interesting because all like a lot of my, so many of my friends are like, oh, Lindsay has this like cabin account and da 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 da, da, which is so much fun. And it's also the easiest icebreaker in the world, right? Like just the easiest one. And
Everybody loves talking about cabins.
everyone loves talking about cabins, or, oh my God, let me tell you about this place I went to. Or, oh, did you see this one place that is blah, 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 blah? And you're like, you just get into it right
Yeah.
away. You
Yeah.
skip all of the other stuff. And
I
it's,
find it hard to explain though. Like I run a video production business and sometimes I'll be meeting with clients and like I'll be helping them with social, but I have to like give some context that I know about social. And it's like I never know how to talk about this like weird second life that I lead that is so
oh,
separate from this normal everyday life. And people in my normal everyday life have no idea
yeah.
often that
I
we
mean,
have this cabin or this account with it.
I would say, so my day-to-day life is I do a lot of like copywriting and brand strategy, and I, help build brands, and people hire me to write for them, or like basically use my creativity for whatever they might have to do, which
Yeah.
is wonderful. That is such a weird way to explain what it is, and probably the only time I've ever explained it like that. However, I will, you're meeting with people, and everything is extremely interconnected nowadays in so many different ways, like,
Yeah.
right? And sure, I have an Instagram account that is about cabins specifically, but in that it's a proof point for all these other things that I understand about social, and why I understand that concept of it. And really at that, the heart of why it was successful is it was very deeply about storytelling and about building a world and all of these things, which is how you build any brand. Any brand that is going to have something, it has to come down to, it has to be purpose driven to some degree if it's going to last in today's world.
Yes.
And, I often don't bring it up, but the people around me will often bring it up like, oh yeah, she has this thing. Or, I'll hear somebody talking about something. I'm like, so I have this Instagram account that's about cabins.
This sounds exactly like how I say it. So I have this weird other life. It's about cabins.
So
This weird neat world.
yeah, so I have this Instagram account about cabins, and yeah, no, I really like it. Or, people like randomly, they'll click through your different things and find it and be like, I saw this thing that
Yeah.
you're like into cabins, and you're
They're
like,
like,
yeah.
you're kind of a big deal in the cabin world, aren't you?
It's really funny. It's but for good or bad, nobody's that surprised when they find out. So whatever that says about me,
Yeah.
they're like, okay.
Yeah. What a fun thing for them to find out though.
What
I think when I think about your account and what makes it different from other cabin accounts in terms of is that like I feel like back to what we were talking about earlier, like real estate versus a feeling.
yeah.
I think there's so many cabin accounts that are about like, can we build the next cool thing that will blow your mind and look so different? And when I'm looking at your feed right now to try and because I only have a feeling about your feed. It's not that I didn't do research for the podcast, but like
No.
I have this gut feeling about what your feed has been for me for however long I've been following it. And it's never been about, I don't know, sometimes it's like a very small cabin in the distance, right? And that gives you that sense of place. It's not about like, oh, this cabin is going to blow your mind. It's about the escape of it. Or I'm looking at one right now that's an A-frame that looks pretty rustic on the outside. It doesn't look brand new at all. It looks like, I don't know, someone might live in the woods full time by themselves in this absolute escape. And it's not about impressing anyone else, right? I guess that's it. The difference between trying to impress people and just trying to like create a space that, I don't know, is just enough or makes you happy. And you are spotlighting the ones that I feel like don't get spotlit in enough places.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
If you're dreaming about a cabin build or are in the midst of a build, or you just bought a place and are getting ready to host for the very first time, regardless of where you are, sometimes you just need a little help along the way. Shared experiences from someone who's been there, advice from someone who's learned a lot of lessons the hard way. That's me. Or a cheerleader as you finish up. All of these reasons are exactly why I started offering cabin consultations to our Instagram followers and friends who could use some specific one-on-one help. I can't promise to solve all your problems, but I can promise to be transparent about our build costs and process, our organization and project management systems, our favorite and least favorite tools for renting, how we market, and how we found ourselves with almost 80,000 Instagram followers and 100% occupancy in our first year of hosting at Cozy Rock. So if that sounds like it might help you, feel free to visit us at staycozycabin.com or on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin and sign up for a time to chat there.
As a woman of one over here, with Cabin Love, like I definitely have, I'm sure that I know that there is more thought to it besides just like, I like this, I'm going to share this. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is like, this stirs something inside of me. This gives me a moment. There's something to this. And it's like, Patti Smith had a quote with, I believe her partner was Robert. And, he was a photographer, and he would take all of these images and he'd be like, you can look at all of it, but there's one with magic, and the one that has the magic in it. Mm-hmm. And so like, you can be looking at a lot of different images or a lot of places or a lot of whatever it is, but there's one that has the magic. Same when like you're in a room of people, like there's someone who has that magnetism to them and that energy, and like, what is it about it? Like you said, they're not trying to impress anyone. Yeah. And that's really interesting. And that is
the magic.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think for me, the ones I share are the ones that I'm like, this has something, or there's something special to this. I haven't seen it somewhere else. There is something that feels dreamy, idealistic, far away, whatever it might be. And I do think, that is something that, practically speaking, you can start to then apply when you are getting hired or video production or whatever it is, right? Like, oh, cool, what's successful in these photos that do really well? It up close is great, I guess, but you need to create a sense of, like you said, context and space. And for me, one of my favorite moments when I go to a new place, like a new cabin, is like the approach and reveal, right? So when you ideally park in a spot where you don't see the cabin. And so when you're at the cabin, you don't see the cars, but you park and you walk up the drive, or you walk up whatever it is, and you're approaching and you're not sure. It's almost like you're stepping through like the portal, and then it reveals itself. And that moment, if you think about it, like in real life, it's not once you already see the cabin that's the shot. The shot is 30 steps back when you're still not quite at the cabin, and you get to see it through the limbs, and you get to see when it's revealing itself, because then it feels like that little fairy tale of it.
Yes. In filmmaking, we talk about this a lot when I'm training like newer folks who are working with me, the way that, and I think I didn't come up with this, someone described it to me, but like, we're trying to replicate that experience through the film. We're trying to give the context. And when you walk into a space, the first thing you do is look around to establish context. So we need wide shots. We need, even though they're not always the most beautiful, though sometimes can be, we need them so that someone can figure out, where am I contextually? And then what do? We just look around a bit closer, right? So then we need the medium shots. And then we start inspecting the things that are most interesting to us. And that's where we need tight shots. And we as the filmmaker are controlling how someone experiences that space in the way that we shoot it, and then the way that we edit those shots together into a sequence that replicates it. So you describing that moment of discovery at the beginning is like such a good context for me. That's what it is in a film. You have to start wide and be like, okay, where are we? What adventure are you taking me on?
Yeah. Where, and you, in larger cinema, right? It's this willing suspension of disbelief. Like, you have someone sitting there and they are watching a movie and they're like, I know I'm sitting in a chair and watching this thing, but if you do a good job, I suspend my idea and my concept of disbelief so that I step into this with you. And same to a degree when we're talking about like, our feeds, or really, which are just like these little selling points. They're mini websites at this, whatever platform we might be talking about. because, you know, I have like gotten on TikTok a little bit, but not really within like a cabin world, because like I'm just not super interested in it, right? And I on
Right.
Instagram, like I love making photos. I love taking shots and I love doing that. I need to learn how to be a videographer more, which is why I do very little reels and things like that, because it's just not a storytelling medium that is my storytelling medium.
Yeah.
I can be a very annoying person who like helps to edit it because I know what I want to see, but I don't have the skill of shooting it. Like I'm not a cameraman. And so in that, there's like there is this like, how do we create something that people want to step into, right?
Yeah.
How do we make the world, and I think you having the videography skills of it, and you're saying like, how do we ground it down, is, I don't know, it's a very thought-provoking, and yeah, it is replicable, I suppose. Anyways.
It is. What you made me think about is that I always talk, when I do consulting on this, people are always asking, how do I get my cabin to be seen on Instagram, et cetera, right? Which is a very real desire, both for the financial aspect if you are renting it, but also for you poured your heart and soul into this and you believe you've created the best thing ever and you want other people to see it. Like that's real too. You just want to share it with the world. But I always describe it as knowing your money shot. And I'm going to change my language as of today, because I believe every cabin has like a shot or a handful of shots that really have that transportation, the power of transportation to bring people there. I'm going to start calling it the magic shot though. Which shots have the magic? Because I like that more. The money shot insinuates this shot will sell your cabin, which it might, but I like better that this shot will help people feel the magic of where they're coming. And then that's our work as cabin owners who are also marketing it via Instagram.
Or like, also content creators who are also storytellers, who are also,
Yes. It's like, how do I communicate the experience that one has here? How do I share that in this weird virtual space that you can't smell it, you can't hear it, you can't touch it, you can't do any of those things. How do I do it with just your vision and your hearing? How do I take you there?
Well, and I think to a degree, it's also deciding, am I like we talked about before, am I emotion or am I real estate? Am I, because like you will always have, HGTV exists for a reason. People love real estate. They love builds. They love like transformations. They love all of that. And then there's also like emotion, which is like, you know, emotion, storytelling, like all of that. And so I think knowing what feels authentic and right to you to be the way that you want to tell it. And if you realize that you as a cabin owner aren't somebody who necessarily is great at it, but you realize the stuff that gets you when you're going to go and book something is the more emotion driven ones, or the more beautiful ones, or more of like this whole story to it, then you, like you said, you hire somebody to do that for you, because otherwise you're going to be showing like the bathroom and no one needs to see it.
Apparently they do. People yell at me all the time about not showing my bathroom.
Really?
Yeah, but the bathroom doesn't evoke emotion for me. I think we have a lovely bathroom. I love showering there, but it doesn't evoke that magic for me. So I don't share it.
Is it that on the listing, does it like not say that there's a bathroom, so they need to see it?
This is just randoms on the internet who are like, but there's no bathroom, but there's no closet, and I'm like, yeah, because a closet doesn't have magic. That's not why we didn't put closets in, but that's why I don't show. I just
don't need to show you it, right?
That's right. It's there. You will use it when you have to go. And in the meantime, the magic is elsewhere. The magic is in the loft library. The magic is in front of the wood stove. And I think that's what differentiates photographers like Ethan and Chris and Pam, is that they are just so good at capturing the emotion of being there, right? Like Ethan's photos, at least it doesn't feel like it to me, are never about Ethan. They're never about they're about sharing that experience with other people, versus like, I call it bikini marketing, but like versus when you have like someone in a bikini in your hot tub, like that doesn't, maybe I'm wrong, but that doesn't feel magical to me. That feels like you're showing me something else that I'm paying attention to.
Well, and like, maybe it's right for them, and maybe that is exactly what they want to do, and that is what they want to share, and that is great. If that is true to you, do it. I love it. Like, do whatever feels good and right to you. I may or may not come and stay, and it may or may not be because of your photos. Who knows, right? But like, do whatever feels right to you. Capture what feels right and true to you. One of my favorite things that people will share with me after I've come to stay is like, I loved seeing my space through your eyes. I loved seeing what was interesting to you, what made it, what caught your attention, what was the thing that like, that was something. And that is always really fun because, and I think it's why hopefully a lot of like owners or people who have spaces, that you would invite content creators in. And specifically, I'm saying content creators instead of like, you know, obviously there will always be guests, obviously, whatever it is, but inviting content creators, people who see the world in a way that has an alignment with how you like to see the world, and ask them to see your space, ask them to see your world that you made and see what they want to capture, see what they want to tell. And in a really beautiful way, you know, the way that Ethan moves, our celebrity of the hour, Ethan, he moves through the world is going to be seeing certain things, and the way that, you know, someone else, whoever it may be, they're going to see different things in that. And together it's going to create this really beautiful tapestry that is, right? Like, what is the truth? It's somewhere between all of it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the truth within it. And I think that if you can maybe seek out those people who, if you don't have the skill yourself, that you admire the way that they create content, the way that they create a video, the way that they capture the feeling of sitting by the creek in the morning, the way that they know that the mist in the morning is the thing that makes this special. That, those moments, like those are, it's like the Mary Oliver of it all, right? Like, how can you have someone who does that? Like, those are the things that I think make the difference. And again, like, create a sense of poetry to whatever it is that we're doing. And that, to me, adds a lot more beauty to the world, which is the more important thing to be doing than anything. I don't need to just post cabins. I want to add beauty to the world. I want to add beauty to the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I think, I often try and direct this into like, what are the useful tips for people listening? And I think right there, you said maybe the most useful thing. I mean, everything you said has been beautiful, but I don't want people to miss that what you just said is actually very practical in terms of how they can make their Instagram work for them more effectively. And I think a lot of times when we think about hiring content creators or photographers, we think of it as a strategic move, a business move. Like, how do I get more eyes on my cabin so that I rent more days? But what you said is actually like, how do I get people to see the magic of my place through a variety of lenses? And that's actually really important because your lens will be different from one of those content creators. And so the more that you bring in, the more diversity of perspectives you can have on your Instagram, which is your mini website, like you said, right? And I think there's like a lot of, and if you can't afford it, even just doing trades for stays or incentivizing your guests, like we do a photo contest every year to encourage our guests to send us their photos that we can then use. But I just love seeing their experiences. I'll happily give away a free stay every year if it means that I get to see your experiences while you were there.
Yeah. And I think that as a cabin owner, again, speaking not from experience as one, but as like, I would see it as you're investing back into your business of creating like these materials that are the reason why a lot of people would want to come. Yeah. And your goal is to share it in a way that like as many people as possible can see themselves there. And then they want to, again, take it from dreaming to doing.
Yes.
And I think that like, what a time to be alive. Like, we have so many people that there's this great democratization of, creating content, like whatever it might be, whether it's like from your phone, whether it's from a beautiful camera, like who knows, right? And I think that the more that we can invite and encourage that and actively seek it out. Yes. And I mean, I think you said something great is like, if you can't afford it, trade, like, but be conscious of what your asks are then in that, I think that one of the best things you can possibly do is like, I had a friend who in Australia, she has this really incredible spot. It's, and she was just like, basically I was going through and she's like, hey, like totally come and stay, whatever you need. No ask, no deliverables, nothing. I'm still posting about that place because
then it's authentic. It's like, this is what I want to create, not what I am required to create.
Exactly. And there's a difference in it. I think that there can be the like a very light, hey, maybe like if you are trading for 5 days, right? Which is
a lot,
a large ask, but I also practical thing. Don't just invite someone if you are trading for a day, or if you are paying them, not a day. It's not enough time to settle in and to find out what makes the place special.
Yeah.
Instead, give them 2 days or 3 days, 2 nights, right? So that there can be a little bit of breath and space to settle in and find out what is differentiating about this. Because it's knowing, oh, it's not this corner in the morning, it's this corner at night.
Yeah.
And it's
and you might not realize that on the first day.
Well, and you can't. And if you're like trying to get all of the shots because you have some outrageous list, which of course you as an owner, if you're hiring someone or you're trading, you want something, you need a certain amount in return because you're like, wow, this is costing me XYZ, especially when you're getting started, right? And like maybe it's just something that that, every however often, whatever the cadence is you set for yourself, you say, once a season, I make sure that I like have somebody come to shoot something or to create videos or whatever it might be. But like you mentioned, a variety of people in that. And ideally it's ones that you, like I said, enjoy how they see the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I know this is going to be the most asked question that we get, so I'm just going to ask you. But you've mentioned staying at several cabins. So for anyone wondering, like, how do I get Lindsey to stay at my cabin? Like, do you do this as like a service? Do you do it as trades? Do you like what? Tell people more.
There, any which way. It is one of my favorite things to come and stay somewhere. Again, I'm in Southern California, so if I happen to already be going to somewhere, I'm happy to do a trade. But if you're, it would need
literally across the country in Maine.
If it's literally across the country in Maine, which I love so much, there's every which way that it could happen. So happily for hire, happily for trades, happily just figuring out how it makes sense, right? And there's obviously different degrees of that. If it's just for cabin love and it's like you provide all of the collateral and all of the images or videos or whatever it is because you had somebody incredible come and stay and you really want to show this, that's a different situation than if I'm coming and shooting and creating or bringing someone with me to come and shoot and create as well. But as silly as it is to say, I love a DM. I am pretty good about answering them. And
I messaged you and I was like, I don't know if this is a long shot, but would you like to join me on the podcast? And you answered.
I am happily in there. I am happily checking everything, and it might take me a day or two, but I'm right there to it. And I love it. I've said joy so many times, but it gives me so much joy to come and stay and to come and share your space and whatever it is. And I would love to put it on my feed. I would love to create a reel. I would love to tell other people about it. It is so much fun, right? It is so much fun. And if I can't, I probably know someone who would love to, and I could connect the dots or whatever it might be. But DM me. It's the easiest.
You might have really figured this out because I feel like for all of us with cabins, there's something beautiful to going to the same cabin over and over again that means a lot to you. And we spend most of our vacation time going to Maine, which are, people make fun of us about. But there's something to what you're doing, which is wait, I'm not going to the same place every time. I'm going to just lots of different places and lots of different cabins. That's pretty magical.
I will say I feel I got a little cheat code in it and I figured that out. And I am so grateful for whatever, whatever past life I was in where I was a good little grasshopper and I, got.
And now you're here.
And now I'm here. There is not to say a grass greener at all, but I do think that I greatly look forward to the day where I find some spot where I'm I can't wait to keep coming back to you.
Yeah.
I can't wait to keep coming back to this spot. And I have those unofficial, adopted children of mine of cabins that I just happily go back to again and again. And like there's something really special about building a relationship over time with a place.
Yeah.
And I think that is lovely. I mean, look, I have been a fan of Maine for forever. And
I mean, it's the way life should be. How could you not be?
Maine is what an incredible spot, right? And so like for you to have somewhere that you get to keep going back to and you know it over year or seasons and years and decades and different things in your life, like to have that constant within it, it must be similar to having an old friend.
Yeah.
It must be. Is it? I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah. That's such an interesting way of describing it as like an old friend, because it's just so familiar. And I do think, as much as I love adventure, I am definitely, it's taken me a lot of years to admit this, because I think I always wanted to think I was like very like free spirited. And I think I'm a creature of habit. So there is something that I love about the predictability, knowing exactly how it will feel when I walk through the door, knowing exactly what I'm going to do that first night, knowing exactly what it's going to smell like. Like that familiarity is just, I don't know, very valuable to me, I've learned. And that's why I traveled a ton in my 20s and even some of my 30s, but like in my later 30s, I've been fine with just going to the same place over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you have a sense of safety and structure, it's easier to venture further, right? Yeah. It's like, you have a constant, so you can then do something that's even bigger. Yeah. And like your adventure probably for the last number of years has been building a business, has been building these cabins, has been building this one that's going to be nearby where you're at. Yeah. That the adventure takes a different shape. Yeah. And the risk of it is a different shape. Yeah, but that's right. You still have it. You're just doing it a little bit differently than, probably trekking through Thailand or something like that.
Right. And the joy comes from different places, and it's not always discovering new things, but it's meeting new people and having them discover your thing.
Yeah. So you have just as much newness coming in. Yeah. Right. And just as much novelty in like a very beautiful way, like in a very true, not just like a, theme park kind of novelty, but you have this newness there that is feeding and is energizing and is life-giving because of that. And so I don't know, I think like how lucky to know that and to have like that sense of safety and security, so you can then be bigger in those other aspects of your life as a result.
Yeah. I want to be so respectful of your time, because I only ask for an hour, but I do want to ask just one more question. Go. Because you mentioned you have the places that you go back to that you love, that are like your old favorites. And you're such a source of like so much wisdom on amazing cabins, that if you were to tell us like your top 3 favorite cabins that we should add to our list of places, even if we can't go there, even if maybe they're not rentable, but like what are your top 3 favorite cabins?
Oh my gosh, must be similar to a favorite children situation.
I heard someone else say this before. I think Ethan said that same thing. Well, he's like, I can't possibly pick favorites.
I mean, it's not even that I can't pick, but it is I pick so much like where I'm going based off of like the mood of what I need, or like the medicine of what that place might have for me, right? Yeah. So it's like if I'm deeply needing solace, here's a spot, or if I'm needing this. So I can tell you regions. Yeah. Like even better. Yeah. I love like, maybe because it's so different to where I am right now, is I love like New Hampshire and like the White Mountains and like the Northeast. I think is incredible. I spent, I've gotten the chance to spend a lot of time in the Catskills area, and which I know is not New Hampshire or anything like that, but it kind of just opened up the idea of what those old mountains are, right? And there is something very still and calm and beautiful in that. And like one day I hope to walk the AT. Like what again? Let's plan it. I love a long walk.
Okay, you don't know what you just got yourself into, because I've wanted to do it forever, but as a single female for years, I was like, well, I can't do it alone. But I don't know that my husband has it in him to do it. So I'm like, I just need to find someone and I just need to go. That is the dream.
I volunteer as tribute. Okay. So I think that the Northeast is something so special. I think that Tasmania has one of the coolest cabin cultures, or like shack culture, you will find in all of the world.
Okay, this is new information. I know
Oh, really?
nothing about Tasmanian cabin culture.
Tasmania has incredible. It's like to a degree like a way of life. Obviously speaking as an outsider, but there is a fierce sense of freedom and independence for a lot of the folks living on this island, and it is such a small island of extremes. And in a lot of ways, there's a similarity probably to like Scotland or something in terms of like the ruggedness of it. But you have so much happening in this small island, from food to landscape to like the adventure of it to whatever it might be. And you will find some of the most stunning cabins. One of my I'll never be able to afford to go there again. But like there is this one that's like it's an island off of an island off of an island off of an island. It's 4 islands.
Wow.
And
so how did you get there? Plane? I mean, it must have been a small plane.
I mean, you fly to Tasmania and then it's like boat.
Okay.
And they pick you up in this little boat and take you across, and it's like it's incredible. And then so like I think Tasmania is a really cool one to explore, and especially for like folks from North America, because it is a really different aesthetic, I think, as well, than we are used to kind of seeing here. Which is pretty fun. It's always inspiring. It's just beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And then I think, I mean, this is more like another area, but it was Joseph, Oregon. Like I will go back there again and again, but I think it's because of the Wallowa Mountains. I mean, I told you this in our little messages we had before. It's like someone says like, tell me a joke. And I immediately go, I've never heard a joke. So you're like, tell me your favorite cabins. No. I've never been to one. I don't know.
There's too many. There's too many.
I've never been to a cabin. I couldn't tell you. But I think the Wallowas are a really special place. And I think it's fun because a lot of people go to the Pacific Northwest, and this is the Pacific Northwest to a degree, but you have like such a different landscape of it. And it's like a fun little cycle. It's like a 5-hour drive from Portland. So you could go and have a little adventure there, but you could also just stay in like the San Juan Islands. Oh my gosh. Now we start going into the.
Okay. But 2 of the 3 of these I've never been to, and 3, if you count the Catskills, I've never been there.
So the Catskills are incredible. I mean,
I know, I can't believe I just always go to Maine, right? It's like I've literally never set foot in Vermont, which is
oh my gosh.
Some of my best cabin friends are in Vermont, and yet you don't drive through Vermont to get to Maine, and I'm always going to Maine. So
we got to fix this.
I know.
We fix it. There are a lot of different places I think that you can get great like resources on it, but I do think that for Catskills, do you follow Escape Brooklyn?
No, but I will now.
So Erin Lindsey, she's who I was going to recommend to you for this too, is she runs Escape Brooklyn. She also has Escape LA, but Escape Brooklyn is like primo. And she has a spot up in, I think she's in Livingston Manor, which not to like blow her up in that, but she is, she has this area just like handled, and she probably has some of the most beautiful, and I say this not as like, I know we talked a lot about emotion versus real estate, but like her real estate listings are, I don't know, she's a savant. Like she picks the ones.
Yeah, I'm just looking at her feed and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's incredible. And especially if you want to explore the Catskills, Escape Brooklyn has it.
And what's her name?
Her name's Erin Lindsey.
Okay, because that sounds familiar, but I don't know where I know that from.
I don't know. I think that her like main one is Escape Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then, I think that would be like the main one, the main spot for her.
Yeah, this is a good place to start for anyone looking, because I'm just looking at it now and it's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good leads for us. Thank you.
I mean, they're just general regions. I'm like, find your own spot within that.
Yeah. But that's great though, right? Because I think back to like what we first started talking about is like everyone's magic is different. Everyone's, what you're looking for might be different. So describing a certain cabin or sending us to a certain cabin could help, but it might be that what you love is different than what we love.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like for me, the region is like the fun part.
Yeah.
Alice of Forest Bound, do you know her? Forest Bound is so cool. She has a really, I think she just started it. But it's a Substack of, because she is one of the best people in the entire world to find like the most charming, amazing, perfect cabins. Like she has a sixth sense for like estate sales and vintage and like cabins. And she has this amazing off-grid spot in New Hampshire, which is actually one of the ones that I was thinking about why I like that area so much.
Okay, I do know her. She was on Cabin Chronicles, I feel like.
Okay, yeah.
So I've seen her. I'm looking at her feed and I'm like, I recognize them. And it's from Cabin Chronicles.
One of my oldest friends from cabin stuff.
Yeah.
And we started a little thing for a while that was about like basically just here's a region and here are a bunch of like cabins within that region.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go rent it and stay there. But she has a Substack that is like here real estate, but also she always just tells people all of these like great finds that she has for the New England area. Yeah. And like Alice is who I follow. Like what is there? Like what's the next spot? She's already on it. Yeah. Okay. And she's opening up her and her partner Greg, they are currently rebuilding a like 18 something schoolhouse that they are like in the process of redoing it all with all of the like, you know, discoveries of foundation of this, of that, the other, of all of that stuff. And so
the hard parts of renovating versus building.
The hard parts of it. Yeah. So they don't rent out their beautiful little cabin, but they are going to rent this one out. So I would say like keep an eye on that because I can tell you that will already be one of my favorite ones I want to go back to.
Yeah. She has amazing taste. And I think why I love her taste so much is like when I think about what makes a cabin special to me, it's not brand new furnishing or decor or like to me, it has to feel. And that was my biggest struggle with building Cozy Rock was that it was a new build. And I kept asking the question of like, how do we make it feel more lived in? And so one of the solutions was like pine floors so that they would scratch really quickly.
Yeah. And also like, you know, finding stuff that has already had a life, right? Like finding, like getting vintage, like getting the rugs that have already been worn in, like, because you want to create texture. I think that you are creating a space, it's like, it's texture and that's what creates the sense of warmth and soul.
And it's a way to quickly make sure you're not replicating something that's already there and you are creating a space. You walk into any flea market, estate sale and look around and be like, where do I see magic? I'm going to start saying that now, but like, where do I feel the magic? Okay, that's a good place to start. Yes. And nobody else is going to be at that flea. There's only one of them. So like, just by definition, it can't be what already exists, you know, versus sourcing it at Target or West Elm. No judgment. My bed is from like, I sourced from those places, but
well, and like time and place, right? Like, and especially if you have a budget I'm sorry, I like went into a whole other thing now, but it's like, if you have a budget, you should, like, you probably are like, I want to splurge on this, but not this and this, but not this. And like, you know, sometimes there's going to be the non-negotiable rug that you're like, that is way more than I want to spend, but it makes a space.
Yeah.
And then like, go buy the things that are a little bit cheaper that you are probably going to have to replace anyways.
There you go. But and like so, the artwork on the wall, I splurged on like big time. But it was this artist who made these beautiful tapestries, to your point, that had like texture to them. And I was just like, okay.
Well, and if it's saving the culture force. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the saying, it's like you regret nothing like the vintage you didn't buy. And it's like,
I haven't heard that, but I love it.
A friend of mine told me that once and I was like, it's true.
I'm writing that down. It's so true.
Well, and it's like
nothing like the vintage you didn't buy.
Right. And so, you know, there will be the pieces that like in the end is probably all going to come out in the wash, right? Where it's like you didn't expect to spend this much more on this or that on that or whatever, but like also thrifting and like estate sales and all of that. One, it's a really responsible way to be doing this stuff, especially if you're doing a new build, right? Where it's like you are adding something to the environment, resources, this, that, the other. Yep. How can we try and find neutral then? Well, but we're going to fill it only with things that have already had a life to it. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's incredible when you can like find a place and help to fix it fix it up and give it a second life and give it another story and give it all of that. One of my favorite things in the world. Sometimes it's not possible, right? For whatever the reasons are. So like the concession you make is then great. I'll fill it with things so I have the lighter footprint as a result of that.
Yeah.
The wonderful benefit is that it probably is a lot cooler. It probably feels a lot better. It probably photographs a lot better, right?
Yep.
Oh, one other thing that could be helpful too for people, total jump, but like practical, don't feel like you have to style the entire house to be photographed, right? Like style vignettes, style an area for what that is. Don't feel like you have to photograph the entire house or the entire everything. And on your feed, show those moments of what it is, because that's what people are going to want to recreate, right? And so like it can be really overwhelming to like, I'm not a designer. How do I design a house or a cabin? Just do little moments. Use your phone. Walk around using your phone and like you'll see what you have to design out in it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the reason that people replicate things the most often is because they feel, and I can relate to this deeply, they don't have that eye. Like I'm looking at hold on, what's her name? Allison?
Alice. Oh,
Alice. I'm looking at Alice's right now. And I'm just like, oh, I don't have the skill to create. I know that I love this. I have good taste, but I don't have the skill to create it. And I think that's where like hiring people to help you can also be really valuable to help translate what your magic is into the actual space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like knowing your own limitations is one of the best things, and like outsourcing where it makes sense. I'm also a big believer that like everybody can do it. Like, even though you're saying like, I don't have, like, you have good taste, but you don't have the skill to it, like you can, right? Like, I do think that everybody is possible, you know, or it is possible for everybody in order to do it. And like, but you have to decide that you're not trying to do what Alice does, or you aren't trying to do what someone else does. You have to do what you do in it. Of course, there are like certain principles that are probably good to follow within certain degrees, but like also break the rules. That's where you get something new from it, right? Like minimalism has been huge for a long time. Now maximalism is in. Like do what like makes you feel good in that. And, you know, again, follow a couple of rules, but like you probably can do it. And I think that like maybe even if you just consult with somebody about it, like you could probably still do it for yourself. Get them to give you the guidance, and then you have you're equipped with the tools and the know-how to a degree to do it yourself. But like it's not, sure, different people have more skill, but like you can do it.
Yeah. It sounds like you're giving me permission to do my dream is Dead Grandma's Cabin. It's like all vintage. And Sean's like, my husband is like, you really need a better name. You need a better concept. And I'm like, I can't, because it just is Dead Grandma's Cabin. Like that is what I want to create.
Do it. I genuinely full permission to do that, because it's like, look at the smile on your face. It is
so fun.
6 feet wide. Yeah. Like you do the one that you're like, this is what I want to do. And that's it, right? And like maybe it turns out Dead Grandma was like super into records and her record collection is insane. Like you get to write an entire story around Dead Grandma, right?
That's what I like. How do you make a space actually a person? And so that people who are there get to know that person through this dead grandma.
Exactly.
I don't know her yet, but I need to get to know her. Who is
she? I bet she is fascinating.
I bet she is too.
That's like the fun thing too, because like I was talking with a friend of mine one time. He's like, what if we like did a cabin that was like an art project, basically, where it's like this kind of immersive experience where you end up finding out like you like either solve a murder, or you like if you do this it then opens up this, like it's a whole experience, like immersive experience, kind of like Meow Wolf vibes, right?
Yes.
But like what if that's what we started doing in it? And I think that that's like we're now at this point where it's like the industry is established within, like, obviously it's always changing and fluctuating within short-term rentals and all of that, but we're at a spot now where it's like there's this huge uptick, plateau, and now people can have fun with it almost. And it's like they can change the game of what it's been, because we're no longer worried about like there's plenty of proof of concept that like this makes sense and this works. So now make Dead Grandma's Cabin.
Yeah. Like it's time for something new. Let's see what else sticks. Let's just throw some spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And like, if it's worst case, you go, cool, we like redecorate it.
Not that hard. Yeah, you can totally, I mean, it's different than like building a cabin that's like crazy and you have to like whatever, but if it's just the decor, cool.
Well, yeah, and even that, what if it's like, you know, it's a limited time thing. So it's like, this is only going to be Dead Grandma's Cabin for 3 years or 2 years, right? Like there's a limited experience to it. And then you get to change it into something new the year after that. Like, and it makes people like, I want to try it before it's gone, but it's like, or I want to go and experience it before it's gone. But then it also gives you this wonderful permission to like, ooh, what's my next?
Yeah. What's coming next?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I love this. My wheels are turning so much right now. Thank you.
That's so fun. I feel like I have now taken up all of your time.
No, this is fine. This is like what I'm here for. I love this.
Okay, great.
But thank you so much for spending this time and for sharing all of your experience. That does feel like a good place for us to wrap up.
Yeah, and I'm just pleasure.
I'm so grateful you were willing to join us. Okay, where can people find you? I feel like they know, but just tell them where are the best places. DMs at Cabin Love. Any place else that they can find you?
I mean, that's the best spot. Anything else can kind of link out from there. If you are interested in a book about saunas, I know you aren't, but there's
Monday. Not yet.
It's called Thermal Healing with Heat, and it's about saunas, hot springs, and bathing culture all around the world, and plenty of little places. You can find that on kind of anywhere that you get books. If you're into campfire cooking, you can find the Pendleton Field Guide to Campfire Cooking. And then other than that, it's all linked on Cabin Love, so you should be pretty good to go.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for joining us, and if you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or share some of your favorite parts over on Apple Podcast. If you have feedback or suggestions for the future, you can also find me on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin. Looking forward to next week.